Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're looking at this knife right here, the Cold Steel Black Talon 2. Cold Steel had their Black Talon, and they did a re-release because of popular demand. A lot of people wanted it again, so they came out with this. This is the Black Talon 2. Very cool knife, in my opinion. I traded for this one on Instagram, and I'm very happy with it. This one, of course, as you can see, is fully serrated, although this also comes in a plain edge blade if serrations is not your thing. Right off the bat, let's talk about that. Serrations versus non-serrated. Most people prefer plain edge blades for the simple fact that it's easy to sharpen, and they don't always need, a serrated pattern. If you have a nice sharp edge, it's not always necessary. The serrations really shine when you have very tough, fibrous materials. It really helps when you're cutting through things like meat, denim, manila rope, things of that nature. Just some tough stuff. The serrations really help. Some people use serrations kind of like a saw. It's not really how they're meant to be used. You slice like you would normally slice if it was plain edge. It's just as the medium you're cutting goes through here, it goes through all these different teeth and angles, and it just helps cut it better. But I mean, I've seen people literally who have serrations on a blade, not necessarily knife people, just regular people, and they just go like this, like it's a saw. If you're trying to saw something, get a saw. That's what they're made for. They work well. But like I said, I mean, serrations, you use it at like any other knife. Just try to cut something and it's going to be more effective in some situations. The biggest drawback and the reason why most people don't like serrations is it just comes down to it's too hard to sharpen. A lot of people don't know what to do. It's intimidating. It's like, how am I supposed to sharpen that? It's a lot of work. Even if you can sharpen it, you know what to do and you have the proper tools. A nice tapered rod can sharpen it. There's a lot of companies that put out very cheap diamond tapered rods, but it's very difficult and it's extremely tedious. And even myself, I have a very hard time, sharpening serrations. I can get them sharp so they can cut stuff, but it's very, very difficult to get like a factory edge. So let's take a closer look at this blade here. It is very interesting. It would be, considered a hawkbill blade just because our tip dips down. Okay, so it is hawkbill in style, but I would consider this a hawkbill recurve, just because there's so much curvature here and angle changes, or even a reverse recurve, but very, very interesting. Nonetheless, you can see it is only sharpened on one side here, and it is flat grounds from about mid blade down, as you can see. All right, just pretty interesting. This is a crazy cutter though. 100% of cutting that I did with this, cardboard. That's it, just cut a bunch of cardboard. It's extremely fun. That point is very pointy. Okay, this pierces into cardboard very easily, and then you can slice very easily, very, very sharp. Okay, this one is in an American-made CTS-XHP. That's something else people may want to hear more about, which let's talk about it right now. CTS-XHP, a lot of people just call it CTS steel, just for short. This is an American-made carpenter steel, and it's compared to S30V a lot. It's considered a super steel by a lot of people. It does have awesome performance. It does have great edge holding capability. I personally think it's more, if you look at like its actual makeup, you know what I mean, the elements that go into making it. It's if you break it down to all the elements, I think it's way more closer to D2 on paper. I don't know why so many people compare it to S30V, probably just because S30V is one of the most known, kind of super steels, let's say, the higher end stuff. So that's, I think, why it's compared there. And a lot of people, it's really a little bit torn. A lot of people say that S30V outperforms this steel. Some people say this is better. What's a fact is CTS has a lot more chromium in it, all right? But again, compared to D2, I think it's more on the level of D2. Okay, just personal opinion, just from using this strictly with cardboard. I'm not cutting anything else with this, just because of the style of knife. I cut through paper once or twice, but it zipped through it. It's not a problem. In fact, let me grab a piece of paper right now. I'll be right back. Just to give you a quick little demo here, because I have not sharpened this at all since I've had it. Of course, with serrations, when I go to cut, it's gonna basically pick a spot, you know what I'm saying, and then just cut through there. It's not like I'm doing much of a draw cut with paper because it's not gonna allow it. Let me see if I have some cardboard. All right, found some cardboard here. So you can see, you know, with cardboard, at least it has more rigidity. So instead of doing like a push cut in one section of the blade here, you can actually come here and do a draw cut. All right, so as I'm coming down, you can see it's a nice clean cut. I can also show you how that penetrates too, that point. All right, very easy to use. So still nice and sharp. Yeah, so there you go, just some quick demos. But yeah, I mean, the serrations, they do help with fibrous materials, but you know, depending on what you're cutting, it could be a drawback. It could actually just bind up, especially if they're not sharp. And that's what happens to a lot of people. I think personal experience for a lot of people is they get a knife, maybe it's even a combo edge where you have serrations down here at the bottom, but after using them and using them, they start to dull out a little bit. And eventually what happens is with the serrations, especially with something like cardboard, when you go to cut something, it's gonna grab in all the little nooks and crannies, and it's not gonna feel like it's performing. In fact, in some cases, the plain edge could feel like it's sharper. Now, the obvious advantage with serrations, if you're cutting on, you know, a flat surface like a cutting board, you're cutting meat. That's why a lot of steak knives have serrated edges, because those points are coming in contact with the board. So as you cut and cut and cut over and over again, especially if you're cutting on a plate, ceramic plate, it dulls metal very quickly. Those little curvatures, or you know, the curved edges in between, they don't come in contact, just the points do. So the points dull out, but it still performs. You know, all those little scalloped edges will still cut, you know, your steak in that case. So that's why you see a lot of, you know, serrated patterns on steak knives specifically. But anyway, as we know, like most bread knives use a serrated pattern. It's just easier to cut the bread. So they definitely have a, you know, a place in the cutlery world. It's just so many people are turned off to them. But I happen to use this particular one, so that's why I'm talking about serrations, but we'll talk about the knife, you know, in general. In case you're not into that, you could still do a full plain edge. So anyway, let's give some specs here, talk about that a little bit. The blade here is 4 inches, almost on the nose. Okay, closed, it is 5.5 inches. All right, fairly large. And that makes it 9.5 inches overall. So it is a fairly, you know, big blade here. But still, having a 4-inch blade, it helps with a lot of states. A lot of, you know, any state that has a knife blade length limit, like Connecticut, off the top of my head, I think it's 4 inches. So you're still within, you know, your limit there. I had a discussion with someone recently, actually, who's from Connecticut, doing a trade for something. And they're saying, oh man, I can only have 4 inches. And if you want to be a law-abiding citizen, definitely do that. But just, you know, as far as reality goes, no one is going to just randomly stop you, ask to see your knife, and whip out a tape measure. Okay, the police don't care. I promise you, they don't care. Where length limit, you know, and type of knives, you know, I had this discussion all the time with people. Oh, I can't have an automatic knife. Oh, I can't have a ballast on. Oh, I can't have a knife over 3 inches. Those considerations, those laws are never ever an issue until you're stopped by the police for something completely unrelated, because they don't randomly stop people for the knives they see clipped to their pocket. They don't do that. That's not reality. If you're stopped for a crime or something and you're patted down and then they find your knife, all it is an extra charge. If you're carrying something that you're not supposed to be, it's an additional charge to something else you're doing. Just saying. So little mini rant, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, back to the knife. This is 4.8 ounces. All right, so not super heavy. You can see it's a very thin, you know, slim profile here, which is nice. As far as ergonomics, it is very comfortable. You can see there's a double finger choil here, so pointer finger rests right in here. All right, middle finger, little nook right there. Then we have a flat surface here that has a little bit of a curvature that hugs your fingers. All right, extremely comfortable. I would say, unlike some other knife models out there, if you do have larger hands than me or smaller hands, I still think it would be comfortable. There's enough room, you know, here for a variable in hand size. All right, so I think most people grabbing this would say, yeah, that's comfortable to hold. As far as jimping, it's on both sides of the G10 scales, but I didn't mention there's the G10. All right, so even though our lock bar is nice and smooth and there's no grooves cut into it, you could still feel this jimping. It's big enough, and the meat of your finger just kind of rests on both sides, so you do feel that. All right, so it's purposeful jimping. But yeah, really comfortable. You can see here it is a lock back design, but we have the triad lock, which has this pin that goes across so that the pressure is not on the back of the knife blade. Okay, so there's basically a space in between the the blade and the lock bar. Extremely, extremely strong lock. If you're one of those people out there that just you focus so much on making sure your locks are strong, if you're those guys that aren't buying liner lock knives because you think they're gonna fail on you for some reason, try a lock. All right, try it. It's extremely nice. No blade play in any direction at all. All right, very strong back spring. Okay, so it does take quite a bit of pressure to push this, and especially if you're not used to the triad lock, you have to push it pretty far down to release that blade. I know some people who have these and they just don't like it because as they're pushing this down, they don't push it enough, to get that blade completely free of the lock. All right, so basically it becomes uncomfortable for some people. I do wish that Cold Steel would put a little, Boyd dent in there, just a little curve, just so it's more comfortable to use on your thumb, because when you are using this, unlocking it quite a bit, you could see, I mean, that is a dent in my thumb. It takes quite a bit of pressure there. I'm just used to it. I've had lots of Cold Steel knives with the triad locks, so it's no big deal to me. But if you've never had a Cold Steel, you've never had this particular lock style, it's something to note. Okay, if you have sensitive hands, weak thumbs, whatever, I mean, if you don't, can't do a dent in your thumb, may not be the knife for you. I'm not saying it hurts. It doesn't hurt at all. It's just for some people, I know it's uncomfortable. If you're looking to buy this for, someone who may have a problem with that, just a consideration. That's all. As far as the pocket clip, we have nice, smooth G10 here. Okay, it's not, I mean, it's lightly textured. You can see that. Very, very lightly textured, but it's overall, I would say it's a smoother G10. All right, nice pocket clip style, by the way. I like the way that looks, but it's rare I get a Cold Steel knife that I like the pocket clip, because usually they're way too tight. It's too aggressive on the texturing, and it grabs your pants like it just does not want to leave. Okay, so when you go to pull it out, it's usually a struggle. Not with this. This rides nicely in the pocket. It pulls out very nicely as well. I just like the clip. The spring tension on the clip is very good. It's not overly tight or anything. You can see this is set up for a tip up right side carry, but it is swappable, okay, for left side carry. It is only in tip up, and if you notice, our opening mechanism is a thumb plate here, but there's also a cutout. Okay, so first let's talk about just opening it regularly. The thumb plate or disc, you guys know I'm definitely more of a flipper or thumb stud guy as opposed to a thumb plate. However, it has its place. This one's totally fine. It is comfortable, unlike when I talked about that Pole Force Alpha 2 that had like the heavy texturing or jimping on the sides. It just became where you're putting a lot of pressure on a point. This, not so much. Okay, there's plenty of grip here with that jimping, but you're really not even touching the side. Like some people might put pressure on the jimping to open it. I don't even do that. I literally use the lip here. So this is how I'm opening this, using this very corner, almost like a thumb stud, okay, and grabbing it fully open. However, this little cutout here, when you first get this, you might think like, oh, maybe your thumb goes there. Well, I guess you could do that. It's not that comfortable. But that's cut out so that you can use this to wave open. And this works exceptionally well in waving open, okay? So it's in the pocket like this. Let's say my finger's the pocket, or it would be up here. That's what shows basically out of your pocket. So you're pulling it, and the pants material dips down into this curve and then grabs the corner of that, all right, and of course is going to fully open it. So it waves open very nicely. Maybe I can show you that with one of these pieces of cardboard. So I have a little rigidity here. Let's say, all right, well, I'm not going to clip it to it. Let's say this is the pocket, right? It's in the pocket. As you pull out, it's grabbing that and opening. All right, that was a horrible example. Hold on a second. All right, so here it is in my pocket, right? As you pull it out, it waves open. Show you a little bit slower here. So it's clipped inside the pocket. You hold it like this, you can see. So I'm pulling it slowly, it's unclipping, and as my pants material comes down, grabs that and wants to lift it out. All right, let's talk price. On the low end, 90 bucks, which I think is amazing. All the way up to about $110, $120. Depends on where you're gonna buy this thing. But even at the full $120, you're not gonna see it for much more than that. I still think it's well worth it. Extremely strong knife, very well built, very capable. Serrated or plain edge, I mean, that's a preference thing. Even if you go plain edge, you can still use this for a lot of utility work. Even though we have a hawkbill, it's not a super crazy thin tip or anything. You can definitely use this for most cutting tasks. Obviously, some stuff that's, you know, really rough, you may want to sway away, you know, from something like that just because it is a thinner tip. But I think a lot of people are buying this knife as collectibles. People are buying this knife to have as a defensive option. A lot of people like this style of knife for defense. I mean, you know, goes along the lines of like a Spyderco Civilian or something similar. But I still say that it's a great knife even for utility work. I still think you can take this and use this just like any other EDC and be extremely happy with it. Again, probably more so with the plain edge blade just for maintenance purposes so you can keep it nice and sharp yourself. In my opinion, if you're gonna get something like this with a serrated blade, I mean a full serration, send it back. When it's dull, don't even bother with it. Just send it back to the company. They'll sharpen it for you, whether it's free or there's a small fee. Just get it professionally done, and you know, you got a brand new knife again. So before I go, let's have another quick discussion about the CTS-XHP on this knife. For 95% of you out there watching this video, all you need to know, it's a great steel. It's a super steel. It's going to stay sharp for a very, very long time. For the 5% of you watching knife videos that are obsessed with different types of steels, who want a definitive what's better, I can't do it. It's not possible for anyone out there. So many people have preferences, like I only buy D2, I only buy, you know, S30V, S90V, S35VN, whatever. People have these preferences, but it's not always so black and white. You can't just say this steel is better than this steel. There's so many variables there. Even if you did a side-by-side knife testing, okay, with the same company, made the same knife with the same size blade, the same blade style, the same blade grinds, everything identical just with two different steels so you could actually compare them, you would still have the human factor, the variable of getting tired. If you take two different knives and you start to, and I've done this so many times, right? And you get like kind of an idea, but nothing is ever definitive. When I compare knives side by side, I'll use my knife for a little bit and then I'll use the other knife for a little bit. But what I always notice, obviously, is that by the time I get to the second knife, I'm tired. You know what I mean? You have that factor that's in there as you're struggling a little bit just because, hey, I just spent 25 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever the case may be of cutting things. I'm starting to get a little bit tired. So now my cuts on the second knife, maybe they're a little bit sloppier. Maybe, you know, it's not the same effort because I've just spent so much time doing that cut test. So if you really want to do like side-by-side comparisons, do a cut test with the knife, then come back like the next day and do it again with the exact same materials and the exact same knife. It just doesn't happen. It's not realistic. You can make fair assessments of like, okay, well, most of the time this steel performs better than that steel, and thousands of people will agree with you, but nothing's ever so black and white. So the whole debate out there of what's better, CTS-XHP or S30V, who knows? Who cares? They're both great steels. I'll leave you with this. If you like D2 or you like S30V, you will be very happy with the CTS-XHP steel. So all that being said, I like this knife. I really, really like this knife a lot. And I think this is one that will stay in the personal collection for a long time. You know, I'll use it occasionally, but it's just a really cool looking knife and it's worth it. If you're on the fence about this one, or if you never saw this one, you might think about it now. It's kind of in your radar. It's definitely worth the $100, you know, that you're going to pay for this. But I still, a lot of people would disagree with me, but I still think that in a plain edge, you know, version of this, you can EDC this every day and be totally happy. And 99% of the things you need to cut, you cut very well. So just personal opinion. Some people think like, you know, crazy blade designs are just ridiculous and there's no purpose for that. It's extremely purposeful. But I think, again, a lot of people would end up getting this because they like this as a self-defense option because it is so strong, because it waves out nice and fast, because it's lightweight with a longer reach, and that crazy looking blade, that hawkbill, I mean, that thing wants to bite into stuff. Okay, so if you are looking for a self-defense knife option, who knows, maybe this is on your radar. You know, I said, again, same categories like the Spyderco Civilian, pretty much any karambit out there. They have their utility purpose, but it's not going to be your first choice. There are better choices for utility work. But of all those different, you know, defensive knives, let's just say, I think this is probably the most reasonable to just EDC every day and be happy with. So that's my opinion on the Black Talon 2. Looking forward to the comments. Let me know if you have this knife, what you think of yours. Let me know what you think of this knife. if you don't have it, if it's a knife you would get, and more specifically, I want to hear people's personal experience with the CTS-XHP. What do you think of yours? You know, whatever knife you happen to have that has that, let me know what you think of it. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon. Take care.